Hello and welcome to another session of the Business Renovator Friday with my friend and colleague, Bernard Keevy. He's coming all the way from the UK. Before we got on here live, we were talking about how amazing it is that we have the ability for a very small amount of money to be able to have a video and share it out to the world and share some ideas. And today, our topic is going to be, I'm going to put it on the screen here for everybody. Questions are the answer. Oh, I forgot to put the they. Let me edit that. We can edit this on the fly. Watch this, Bernard. I'm going to edit on the fly. You're going to see another word come to life.
Why are we doing that then? That was a question.
That's right. That's a good one, isn't it? Hang on, my calendar's telling me we got to go live. Well, we're already live. There we go.
Well, as Einstein said, the questions, it's all about the questions you ask. They're far more important than what you know. So questions you ask are far more important than what you know.
Yeah. Why do you think that is?
Because you know what you know, but if you ask a question, you can find out some more that you didn't know. Whereas if all you did is talk without asking questions, then all you can do is tell people what you already know. You can't find out new stuff without asking questions.
So have you had an experience where you've actually told people stuff and forgot to ask them?
Very much so, yeah, I have. I think it's a trap a lot of us can fall into. Yeah, it's very easy. It's very easy to become really sort of mastered up or genned up on a topic and then want to present it all to people. I've had a lot of experience in education and lecturing in the past, and it's very easy to stand up there and spout everything you know, but it doesn't really work unless you can get engagement, and you only really get engagement by asking the equivalent of trial close questions along the way. Well, you know, what did you think of that? Did that make sense? Etc. etc. You have to get engagement, I think. Do you agree?
That was a question to see if I'm engaged. I absolutely do agree. It's a litmus test as to where you are in relationship to where the people you're communicating to are, and it's I don't know how else you can do it. If you're just telling people, there's no. It's a dialogue. It's not a. I mean, it's a monologue, not a dialogue, right?
Yeah.
And in order to understand people, we're better off to have a conversation where we engage by asking to understand who they are, where they're coming from, where they want to go, right, and where they've came from.
Yeah, Stephen Covey says, seek to understand before seeking to be understood. But the only way you can, I think I'm right in saying this, the only way you can get someone else to communicate what you need to hear so you understand is by asking them questions, because otherwise what's going to prompt them to coming out with the information that you need to know? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it absolutely makes sense. What was going through my mind when you're talking was I have too many things binging and banging, so I'm going to try and turn them off because it's driving me crazy. Turn the volume down on things. I think there's an art and maybe even a science to asking questions.
Why'd you say that?
Because we could get caught up in having just for example, so where are you? Where do you live?
I'm in the middle of England.
Okay, so you're in the middle of England?
Yeah.
How long have you been there?
Well, I've been around a bit, around the clock a few times, but we've been in this house for 20 something years now, 20 odd years.
Why'd you pick that house?
Well, it's a very good question. It's a long story, Phil. It's a long story.
So, well, we've got all day, but hurry up, hey?
Okay. Well, I was working for a company in the life insurance industry, pensions, and a colleague of mine bought a house in this very village and had a bit of a sort of housewarming. So I came and popped in, and I thought, oh, I like this village. And I was in between marriages at the time. So I saw this house for sale and I thought, that's the house for me. And that was the house over the road. So we did a big move. We moved over the road. Thanks. Anyway, how long have you been in your house, Phil?
13 years.
13 years. And what made you move to that neck of the woods?
Great question, because I had a townhouse, a 2-story townhouse, terrace house, but it was a condominium. And I knew something was going to change in the marketplace. And I felt at the time, if I didn't go now, I'd be caught at having to pay more for the same kind of house, not too far out there. So I was motivated by the opportunity to get more house for less money. I did look at homes in the same area I was living in. The prices was about the same as what I paid for a new home at the time, but there would be a requirement for repairs to be added to the cost of the house over a shorter period of time buying new. So that's why I bought out here, where I'm at, out in the sticks.
And are you pleased?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, absolutely. Where I was trying to go with that little rant, and you're just such a nice guy that I couldn't get you to go there. When I was talking about the art and science of asking questions, is if we ask them in a rapid form, it can be like a very uncomfortable and interrogating kind of approach. And I was trying to get there, but I'm not very good at that, so I'm not a good example of that. It becomes awkward and uncomfortable. We end up making people feel uncomfortable, and therefore wouldn't open up, and the rapport part of it wouldn't be there. And so they probably would want to try and get away from us as fast as possible. Whether we're selling an idea, product, or a service, if I had somebody that was interrogating me, I would be uncomfortable and want to get out of the uncomfortableness as fast as possible.
Okay, that's a good point. So what sort of questions are the sort of questions that make people feel they're being interrogated?
Well, I think if they're too direct and too quick, and we're not really paying attention, and we're trying to, whether we're doing it intentionally or not, we're doing a form of intimidating when we're asking the questions. And if we're feeling intimidated, we're going to feel uncomfortable. Or feeling uncomfortable, we're not likely to respond with the answers that you want, are we? Now, I'm not talking about hostage negotiation kind of. I've never done that, so I don't know. But in terms of a regular, everyday life existence, I think that kind of rapid fire is intimidating for most of us and would not build rapport.
Yeah. So are you saying that really the questions we need to be asking are the sort of questions where people will talk to us for a longer length of time, if you like, so that we get the chance to listen, rather than we're just asking questions and then they give us short answers and then it's another question? Is that what we're saying, do you think?
Could you say that again?
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is, if you ask certain questions, they invite people to speak at greater length in their response, which means we then get a chance to listen to their response, which means we then get a chance to establish rapport, because there's nothing better for establishing rapport than listening to someone else, communicating with us. So there are certain types of questions that will encourage that, and there are other types of questions where you ask the question, all you'll get is a short answer, and then you ask another question and you get a short answer, and that's the sort of thing that ends up sounding a bit like an interrogation. Which,
so if you're referring to like open-ended and closed type and that kind of thing, yeah, I guess that could be the case. Okay. What I found to be most effective in my experience is to be fascinated with the people you're talking to, like being a tourist looking for directions. Even if you know where you're going, make sure that you understand what's going on in the mind of the person you're engaging with. And it was being a tourist looking for directions example was taught to me 3 decades ago by a fellow who was a project director for a company that worked with large Fortune 100 companies. And that's what he would do. He would actually talk to all of the senior level C-suite, CEOs, CFOs, CTOs, all those kind of people, one-on-one. And he would go in with the mindset of being a tourist looking for directions, to understand what the person he's talking to is thinking, feeling, and aspiring to be, or to move their part of the company to, and what are the challenges, frustrations, what are the wins, all that stuff. And then he would complete that whole process with all of the team, compile it, and then get back together to them, and then present them with a resolution or a solution to what he understood. So all of the areas could work together. And if there was this kind of head bashing politically, egos and all that stuff, he would be able to help them not do that anymore. Not immediately, but he would be able to provide them with a solution to the problems that he's uncovered and deliver it to them in a way that made sense to all parties. And as a result of that, they've had massive success around the globe. So that's kind of where I try to get to, is to have those kind of discovery conversations with the people I'm interested in engaging with.
Does that sound to you a bit like a doctor and a doctor's approach with their patients, perhaps?
Well, probably a good doctor, wouldn't you think?
Yeah.
Because it reminds me of a story when I was going through some training for some of what we have at Focal Point. It's powered by Brian Tracy. And one of the people there from Nicaragua was the area manager for that country, had a sore back. And he went to his doctor, and the doctor asked a few questions, touched a few things, and said, oh, it's just an inflamed disc. Take these anti-inflammatories, and here's a few painkillers to help you. You should be good in the next couple of weeks. So the pain got worse and didn't get any better. So we went to another doctor, and the other doctor asked more questions, did more extensive exam, and actually took some x-rays. And what was determined was, by the second doctor, was there was a fractured vertebrae. And the painkillers and anti-inflammatories were not going to help him. He needed something else. So to your point, depending on the doctor, yes. Brian Tracy says, be a doctor of selling. Because you do proper diagnosis to be able to provide a resolution or a prescription, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't really get hung up on open-ended questions, open or closed questions. I just make it conversational, and I'm trying to be I'm usually fascinated with the people I'm talking with, and the questions that I need to have answered pop up in my mind. Maybe it's because I've been doing this for a long time. I'm not sure. But this questions, that question I have on the banner there, it says questions are the answer, aren't they? The questions are the answer statement was introduced to me a very long time ago. And some people would say that particular individual's form of sales training was, it's antiquated and out of date. Maybe some of the things he would talk about and some of the language he uses isn't politically correct in today's world. The art of asking questions, though, is really what makes a great communicator. In Dale Carnegie's book, you talked about this earlier, How to Win with Friends and Influence People. Yeah. There's actually a story in there where he's in New York City, and the story is basically a botanist who's apparently crotchety, cranky, and doesn't talk to anybody, was interviewed by the local newspaper. And it turns out that Dale Carnegie, which the botanist said was a wonderful individual, totally great conversationalist, and really appreciated the man's viewpoint. Well, apparently, according to the story in that book, Dale Carnegie asked 2 questions to shut up. So the rest of the time, the botanist, who was crotchety, cranky, and miserable, spoke, and Dale just listened.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm literally just reading that book at the moment, and yeah, I know the story you referred to.
I saw a post on Facebook today, and I snagged it because it's relevant to what we're talking about, Bernard. Mm-hmm. And it was asking, what are some of your favorite questions to start a conversation with a possible prospect? And the one that comes to mind for me, I'll borrow the other one. I'll share the other ones some of the other ones. But the one I like a lot is the one that's by Dan Sullivan, The One Question. Are you familiar with that?
I am. The DOS question.
Yeah.
Go on then.
I'm just going to read it out. I'm going to move it where I can see it better without being off camera.
Yeah.
It basically goes, here it is. Where'd it go? Here it is. So before I tell you about our offering, I'd like to ask you a question. If you're having this discussion, if we were having this discussion 3 years from today, and you were to look back over the 3 years as of today, what has to have happened, both personally and professionally, for you to feel happy about your progress? Now, that's not a type of question asked everybody all the time, but in certain situations, a long question like that inspires people or encourages people to tell a story. Now, when I first heard about this one, I was watching on a YouTube a video where Dan Sullivan was talking about this, and somebody had been a referral to him from another client, and they came in and said, yeah, I heard I need to talk to you. A buddy of mine has gone through your coaching program and said that I should work with you. So, but before I commit to doing anything, tell me about your coaching program. And he came up with this question. And what ended up happening, according to the video I saw Dan talk about, 20 minutes later, after Dan had asked this question, the prospective client went through all the things he wanted in the program. And at the end of it, he says, I guess I should get started. Does it happen that way all the time? Probably not. But isn't that amazing? If you allow people to tell you what they want to tell you, then you can see whether how you can serve them or not.
I know. And what's interesting is that there are questions like that which will get people talking, but then there are other questions which will get them expanding and talking in greater depth about the things they were talking about. So, for example, the question, how do you mean, or tell me more. So the idea being that you get an answer to your first question, and it's very easy to accept that answer as being the answer. But if questions are the answer, aren't they? They're not all equally the answer, aren't they? So, digging deeper, and there are certain ways of doing that. So, tell me more, how do you mean? Or even just nodding and saying yes, and silence. Silence can be a really powerful question, because if you stay silent, the other person is likely to break the silence and speak. Would you agree with that?
Would I agree with that?
Okay, I'll break the silence. we can't just stay silent on a
Live stream, no, absolutely.
We can't. Honestly, I would have done otherwise, but we can't really. It's not fair on the listeners. But
no, I totally agree. I totally agree with you. But that was a demonstration, though, of the power of silence. Because even though you knew what I was doing and I knew what I was doing, deliberately taking that pause, it caused you to react and it caused you to laugh, right? And then we had a conversation.
Well,
Chris, have you ever?
Yeah, what's that? So, hang on, we had silence a minute ago. Now we're both speaking.
We're jacked up with questions to ask, aren't we?
I've got one. Right. In Dale Carnegie's book, one of the things he suggests is that, well, there's two things that link with each other, really, which are that people like to think that it's their idea. So if you can persuade the other person to think it's their idea to do something, they're much more likely to do it than if it's seen as being your idea. And obviously that applies to selling, but it applies to a lot of other things as well. So, and the other thing is, if you ask the right sort of questions, you can sort of subtly point the other person in the direction of coming up with the conclusion out of their own mouths that makes them think that that the answer they're supplying, if you like, means it's their idea. So the two things marry, really. So a question that can get someone to think that the answer they're coming up with is their idea is much more likely to make them act than if you don't do that. Would that make sense to
you? Does that feel and sound like it's manipulative in any way?
Well, what do you mean by manipulative?
Well, if you're just doing it to to promote a particular response. Like we're talking in generalities. We should probably talk about examples where we use questions when we've got results versus just hyperboles, because hyperboles don't serve a lot of people. So you and I have not been very good at telling and sharing the stories much. So I think we have to be careful in how we use questions and make sure that we're coming from a point of high intention and low attachment. We're not attached to the outcome, and our intentions are of the highest level. And what I think of some of the questions that I've asked story-wise, as of late, one of the people that I've really appreciated in the style of questions is a fellow by the name of Chris Voss. He's the author of a book, Never Split the Difference. And he's a U.S. negotiator where he's bank hostages and military type of hostages where the people have been kidnapped, and he's been involved with that. And what I love about his title of the book, Never Split the Difference, is could you imagine if you had somebody who didn't think like Chris does, and there's 10 people in the bank, and there's, I don't know, 10 in blue and 10 in brown, or pardon me, 5 in blue and 5 in brown. So it's 10 people you want to get out. But you're going to negotiate for a win-win-win situation. So you want the hostage taker to win too, right? And you want to get some people out alive, so it's a win. And that's not right in terms of negotiations. What he wants to do is get everybody out. So he uses a variety of different questions to help it beat the other person's idea. He does appeal to that, but it's much more sophisticated than open-ended questions and closed questions and that kind of thing. There's even like the late night FM DJ voice. It seems like you're really not happy with the price of this proposal. So it's more than just the types of questions. It's the questions that you ask, I believe, right? So one of the ones you call it the porcupine, which is the old label for it, modern day label is mirroring it. So a mirroring question would be, the price is too high? And I might say, when you object to the price, well, I know you how to do this, so I'll ask you, yeah, the price is too high.
Well, the price is too high?
Yeah, so then then he's going to shut up and take that pause, right? And hopefully I'm going to respond, yeah, the price is too high. I just think I could get this down the street for less money. And then that would spawn you to ask another question, right?
Yeah, except I'm trying to think what the question is.
Yeah, no worries. So yeah. I have used some of the questions, style of questions, like, would it be ridiculous of me to ask you if you could share me, would it be ridiculous of me to ask you what your budget is for your sales training? Okay. Right? And I've had them reply, and it's a different way of asking, hey, what's your budget? Right? So I've used that in an email. Will it be crazy, maybe even ridiculous of me to ask you what your budget is for this year's sales training, for example? And I've had them respond back, no, it's not crazy at all. Matter of fact, we're working on, we don't really know yet what our budget is. We're trying to get this and this and this. We're from another division. And once we've got that all sorted out, we'll be able to tell you what the number is. Yeah. It was brilliant.
No, excellent. Well, there's a couple of other examples actually on a sort of similar vein. Have you ever heard of someone called Big Al, Tom Schreiter?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of your favorites.
Yeah. Well, he talks about the idea that one of the things involved in establishing rapport is to get past what he calls the salesperson alarm, because everyone's very fearful initially that you're going to try and sell them something. So he refers to things called icebreakers. And so examples of some, well, just off the top of my head though, I'm just thinking of a couple. One is, are you ready to your job or are you open-minded? So this is for a multi-level marketing type position. Right. So it's an icebreaker. And the other one that I think is a really powerful one is, would it be okay if? So if you say to someone, and this does work, if you say to someone, would it be okay if I pop in later? The would it be okay bit gets under the defenses, and it's almost automatic for the answer to be, yeah, that's fine. Whereas if you said, can I come and see you later? And they think you're a salesperson, they might not say yes. So the would it be okay is one of these ways. It's a question that sort of dips below the, the salesperson alarm, the force field, if you like.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
in the psychological world, they call that "don't wake up the amygdala." That's the fight and flight mechanism. So if we don't want to wake up, the art of asking. So there is an art and a science to asking questions. So if you had a situation where you've actually taken Big Al's ideas and implemented it in your life, and share that story with us, I think that would be valuable.
I've done that a lot. When I'm speaking to people to get to arrange to see them, I use that quite a lot now. I use that very question, and I've found that if I didn't use that question, it might be more awkward. But generally, people will say yes if you start with, "Would it be okay if?" It does work. And on the top of that was right. Yeah, the other thing that works is if you can get people saying yes, 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 they carry on saying yes, and it makes the whole process of, say, a sales process, for example, a lot easier. And again, this is from Big Al's book, but again, this works. If you say some comment like, I don't know, people today are very busy, aren't they? Yes. And if they've got families, they're probably struggling for money a lot of the time, aren't they? They go, yes. And then you say, are you wedded to your job or are you open-minded? And they're more likely to say yes. And you can get this yes going by asking the right sort of questions initially to provoke the yes response. And Dale Carnegie says exactly the same thing, going back to him, that if you can get people saying yes, they're much more likely to be in agreement with you later on than if you start off by disturbing the amygdala, as you phrased it. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have an example where you've actually used these things to share with our audience?
Well, I mean, I've got examples. It's just not. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know they work. I know it works.
Yeah. So we could talk quite a bit longer about questions and the art of them. I think that's for me, it's something that I am cognizant of on a daily basis and always looking for ways to improve my ability to communicate more effectively, because to me, that's what questions helps us do. It's not lopsided. It's an interactive process, right?
Yeah.
And it engages people. And if people aren't engaged with us, I think sometimes it doesn't matter what question we ask. It's not the right timing, maybe not the right situation for them or for us right now, if we're honest with ourselves.
No, I agree.
And there's all sorts of conversation and debate. And as you were giving me examples, I can think about how I've heard people would say what you're talking about is old school, it's not relevant. But gravity's old and it still works every day. I think the intention, though, is really key in whatever questioning style or modality that you're doing. And you said something earlier about having, I think you called them trial closes. It's a check-in close or a soft close. Yeah. It allows us to understand. It's like taking the blood pressure by a doctor. They know that your heart's beating at a certain rate and you're not going to have a heart attack and you're still okay, right? It just gives us that sort of thing to see if we're on the same score sheet, so to speak. Yeah. Right?
No, I agree. And I've just thought of a specific example going back quite a while. When I worked for Clerical Medical, Life and Pensions, we had a sales manager and he was really, really good. He used to say things like, well, if you go and see that IFA, you're more likely to get business, yes, and blah, 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 yes. And he used to ask the question, he used to make a statement and then use the yes as a question at the end. He was an absolute expert at it. And you end up nodding along and you end up going, yes, 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 you automatically agree. So these sort of questions do work. And in terms of progress checks, people can only listen for so long. So if you're doing all the talking, you lose people. But if you say things and then, would you agree with that? Is that what you expected? Did you think that was correct? If you're asking those sort of questions along the way, then you're giving other people a chance to engage with you and it does help the rapport process a lot better. And again, it's just these little questions that get people engaged.
You just reminded me of something happened this year, a few months back, maybe a few weeks recently, and they were really passionate and excited about the product that they were representing. And I had asked a question to find something out about what their offer was. And what they heard in the question led them on for, felt like 10 minutes, but it's probably only 5 minutes. And they started to, I hate the word pitch, except for in this example, they were being, as they say in today's world, spammy and or pitchy, which means they were telling me all about the virtues of their product. Like, I wasn't against the product, but the question I had asked wasn't the answer that they were giving. And if they had have just shared a little bit of information, and to your point, saying, is this addressing your concern? I could have said no. I was looking for a way for them, without being rude, to stop them on this presentation. So eventually I got to the point where I'd had enough. I said, okay, I appreciate what you're saying. I think I need to learn how to ask better questions, because what you were telling me about wasn't what I thought I asked. Let me try again, right? And if that person had been receptive and met you, they would have learned that you should check in and do a kind of a trial close, check in with the blood pressure, see where the person is before you go on a great long journey, because then it means they're not really listening, they're not tuned in,
no.
Right?
And asking these little questions along the way helps you listen better, doesn't it? Because it points out the things that you're not quite sure you've understood, sort of thing. Or
it confirms that you actually do know what they've said and that you were really listening, and it validates them. Yeah. It's all about building rapport, I guess, is in my viewpoint. It's if we ask questions to build rapport, then it allows us, it gives us we've actually earned the right to go to the next step. And I think it was last Friday, you and I were talking about the triangle. I call it the upside down one, but whether it's upside down or upright way, it doesn't matter. The 4 levels it's divided in are the same. And the biggest chunk of that is building rapport, trust, and respect. And when we've done that by asking questions to understand who they are, because nobody cares about us until they know how much we care about them. And building the rapport and asking questions in such a way that we're very sincere, we're very interested, helps us get to the next level, because they shared enough information with us, right? That we can actually then say, well, based on what we said and what you've told us, we have a couple of ideas, and then you can present them with them. If they want, would you like to hear them? And they'll go, yeah, okay. Or they'll go, no. If they say no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway.
Would it be okay?
We're getting to the end of 30 minutes. Actually, we're over 30 minutes. And quite often we'll have a slide up and invite you to our call to action. And our call to action is both Bernard and myself have a tool that we can help any business pretty much find an additional $100,000 of hidden potential for their business without spending a nickel on advertising or marketing. And if you're listening to this now, or if it's in a replay and you go #replay, both of us would be happy to walk you through that process. It's called the Profit Accelerator software tool. And I'm bad because I don't think I have your email address here. Let me just see if I do, buddy. Did I take it out? I was doing some house cleaning. Not because I don't like you. I had too many banners in here. I'll have to put it back in. But you can reach out to us. I know that Bernard's going to share this on in his social media platforms. So if you see that there, you'll be able to reach out to him. And Bernard Keevy's on Facebook as well, so you can go check him out there and get him to do one. And if you prefer dealing with Bernard, you can send me an email and say, I don't want you, Phil. Get me in touch with Bernard. Happy to do that. The idea is that we're looking for case stories so that we can demonstrate and prove that this claim that I've just made on behalf of both of us, $100,000 additional hidden potential in your business, and we can do it in less than an hour. we both have the capabilities and the solutions and system to help you do that. So if that appeals to you, reach out and let us know, and we'd be happy to do that for you. Anything you want to say in parting comments, Bernard?
No, that's excellent. Thanks. It might be worth pointing out that we do focus a lot on two key areas, which is their digital marketing and their key numbers. And basically, by exploring those areas, I think it's fair to say that a few small improvements make a dramatic difference to the bottom line for most businesses, don't they? Astonishing.
Yeah, well,
astonishing difference. Yeah. Sorry.
It's the eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah.
Right? Compound interest. So that's what our system is based on that. So until we meet again in about a week, I'm still Phil Jones, and this is Bernard Keevy.
Bernard Keevy, yeah.
Although you didn't put your name up there, you just have Bernard. It's Bernard Keevy, not just Bernard. There's only one Bernard Keevy that I know.
Okay, yeah, okay. I haven't put my surname up. Okay.
Yeah,
I'm
no worries.
going incognito tonight.
All right. Until next time.
See you.